closet portal. Once upon a chilling autumn night in a sleepy town shrouded in mist, lived a little girl named Emily. She was a curious child, always seeking adventure in the most unexpected places. On this particular night, the moon hung low, casting eerie shadows across her room. Emily's parents were away, leaving her in the care of her stern grandmother. As the clock struck midnight, Emily heard an ominous creaking, like the sigh of an ancient tree in the wind. She followed the sound, her tiny footsteps echoing through the silent house, until they led her to the forgotten closet at the end of the hallway. The closet door, painted an ominous shade of midnight blue, beckoned her. It had always been locked, and her grandmother's warnings about it being a place of darkness and despair rang in her ears. But Emily's curiosity was insatiable, and tonight she couldn't resist. With trembling hands, Emily turned the brass handle, and the door groaned open. The closet was unlike any she had seen before. Instead of clothes and toys, she found herself staring into a pitch-black abyss. As she peered closer, she realized that it was a window to another world, a world of shadows and twisted trees. Without warning, an icy wind swept from the closet, extinguishing the candle in Emily's hand. Panic surged through her veins, but something held her back from fleeing. She felt an unseen force, a presence that seemed to emanate from the dark void. Against her better judgment, Emily took a hesitant step forward, her small feet touching the cold, damp ground of this sinister realm. The world beyond the closet was an eerie forest, where gnarled trees reached for the heavens with skeletal fingers, their leaves a sickly shade of green. A pale, ghostly light seeped through the tangled canopy, revealing an unsettling landscape. As Emily ventured deeper into the forest, she heard whispers that seemed to come from the very shadows themselves. They spoke of ancient curses and forgotten souls. Her heart raced, but still, she pressed on, unable to resist the lure of the haunting whispers. Time seemed to blur in this chilling place, and Emily lost all sense of direction. The forest seemed to stretch endlessly, and the night grew darker with every step. Just when she felt hope slipping away, a distant glimmer caught her eye. Through the twisted trees, Emily saw a faint, ethereal glow. It pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing her closer. With each step, the glow grew brighter until it revealed itself to be an old lantern, suspended in the air by an invisible force. As she reached out to touch it, the lantern flickered to life, casting a warm golden light that pushed back the darkness. Emily's heart pounded as she realized that this lantern held the power to guide her back home. With the lantern in hand, Emily retraced her steps through the shadowy forest, following the path of light. The whispers grew louder, but she paid them no heed, focusing only on the beacon before her. Finally, she stood before the closet, its door still ajar. With a surge of determination, Emily stepped through, the lantern's light flooding her room. The closet closed behind her, leaving no trace of the sinister world she had just escaped. From that night on, the closet remained locked and untouched. Emily never spoke of her harrowing adventure, but the lantern sat on her bedside table, a reminder of the darkness that dwelled just beyond her world. And though she grew older, Emily never lost her curiosity, for she knew that sometimes the most frightening adventures could be found in the most unexpected places. The Embered Vengeance. Once, in the forgotten corners of a desolate town, there lived a man whose face bore the scars of a malevolent fire. His name was Samuel Crane, and his existence was shrouded in whispers and legends. Samuel had been wronged, a victim of a cruel act that left him with a visage of torment. Years passed, and the embers of hatred smoldered within him. He had not forgotten the faces of his assailants, nor the searing pain that had branded him forever. In the darkness he plodded, waiting for the moonless night that would herald his vengeance. The night finally arrived, as shadows danced eerily across the abandoned streets. Samuel emerged, a specter wrapped in tattered rags. His footsteps echoed like a grim heartbeat, announcing his dreadful intent. His first target was the man who had betrayed him, Robert Harlow. As the clock struck midnight, Samuel materialized in the heart of Robert's somber abode. The room was cloaked in darkness, but Samuel's fiery eyes pierced through the gloom. With a voice like the wind through a haunted forest, Samuel spoke. "Remember me, Robert. Remember the fire you kindled." Robert's breath caught, a chill seeping into his bones. He recognized that voice, that face, but it couldn't be. Samuel was dead. Samuel advanced, each step heavy with the weight of his suffering. Robert stumbled back, his hands trembling, as he fumbled for a way out. But Samuel was relentless, an avenging specter forged from pain and fury. In the dead of night, screams pierced the air, echoing through the desolate town, carrying the terror to the farthest corners. Samuel's thirst for retribution was not sated. He sought out the others who had conspired against him, leaving a trail of fear-stricken souls in his wake. They were hunted, haunted, and faced the relentless judgment of a man they believed to be long gone. As the night wore on, the town was swallowed by an impenetrable darkness, the air thick with an oppressive dread. The moon itself seemed to shudder, casting uneasy glimmers through the twisted branches. By dawn, the last of Samuel's assailants were found, cowering in the crumbling ruins of a forsaken chapel. They begged for mercy, their pleas swallowed by the void. But Samuel was not there to grant mercy. He was a force of nature, a revenant of wrath. Their fate was sealed, just as his had been. When the sun finally clawed its way above the horizon, the town lay still and silent, as if holding its breath. Samuel had exacted his revenge, leaving a legacy of terror and a tale to be whispered for generations. And then, like a wisp of smoke, Samuel disappeared into the mists of legend, his fiery eyes forever etched into the nightmares of those who dared to remember. The Eternal Torment. In the small, forgotten town of Blackwood, nestled deep within the embrace of ancient forests, there was a house that held a sinister secret. It stood alone, its time-worn facade concealing the malevolent force within. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of decay, and the walls seemed to ooze a palpable sense of dread. This was the house where nightmares found their dwelling. One fateful night, Emma, a curious soul with a penchant for the macabre, dared to step across the threshold. The door creaked shut behind her, sealing her fate within the suffocating darkness. As the clock struck midnight, Emma's eyes snapped open. She was no longer in the dilapidated house, but in a twisted realm of shadows and despair. The ground beneath her feet seemed to righty, shifting and contorting like the dreamscape of a fever-ed mind. Fear gripped Emma's heart as she realized the horrifying truth. She was trapped in a never-ending nightmare. Her surroundings were a grotesque mockery of reality, where the laws of physics and logic held no sway. Every step she took led her deeper into the abyss. The air grew colder, the silence punctuated only by the echo of her own rapid breaths. Shadows slithered and danced, taking on monstrous shapes that taunted and teased. Emma's screams were swallowed by the void, her voice reduced to a mere whisper in the face of the malevolent force that held her captive. She stumbled through the twisted landscape, her mind unraveling with each passing moment. Time became an elusive concept, stretching and warping as days blurred into nights and back again. Emma's body grew frail, her spirit weaker with each agonizing heartbeat. But the nightmare was cunning, weaving illusions of hope and escape, only to cruelly snatch them away. It reveled in Emma's despair, feeding on her terror like a parasitic fiend. As the eons passed in this accursed realm, Emma's once vibrant spirit withered to a mere ember. She became a ghost of her former self, a hollow shell trapped in an unending cycle of torment. And then, one fateful night, as the clock struck midnight once more, Emma felt a glimmer of something she thought long lost. resolve. With newfound determination, she pushed forward, defying the nightmare's twisted whims. As the first rays of dawn pierced through the darkness, Emma emerged, trembling and frail, but alive. She stood on the threshold of the accursed house, her eyes wide with disbelief. The nightmare had released its grip, leaving Emma forever changed. She carried the weight of that eternal torment, a survivor of a malevolent force that few would ever comprehend. From that day on, Emma became a beacon of cautionary tales, a living testament to the horrors that lurk in the shadows. And though she had escaped the nightmare, its echoes would forever haunt her dreams.
The Witch's Hollow. Once nestled in the heart of a dark, foreboding forest, there stood an ancient, gnarled oak tree. Its twisted limbs reached out like skeletal fingers, and beneath its roots lay the entrance to a hidden world, the Witch's Hollow. Legend spoke of an old witch named Elara, whose power was said to rival the very forces of nature. She was said to have forged a pact with the spirits of the forest, granting her dominion over the land and its creatures. One moonless night, a curious young woman named Isabella, known for her insatiable hunger for knowledge, dared to venture into the depths of the forbidden forest. Guided only by the eerie glow of fireflies, she found herself standing before the ancient oak. The air grew cold and heavy as she descended into the hollow. The roots twisted and turned, forming a natural labyrinth. Isabella's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Deeper into the hollow she ventured until she stumbled upon an enchanting grove. There, a spectral mist danced among the trees, and an eerie silence hung in the air. At the heart of the grove stood a shadowy figure cloaked in tattered robes, Elara herself. The witch's eyes, pale and piercing, locked onto Isabella's. "Who dares to trespass in my realm?" Elara's voice was like the rustle of leaves in a chilling wind. Summoning her courage, Isabella spoke. "I am Isabella, seeker of knowledge. I come in search of the ancient wisdom that lies within this forest." Elara's laughter echoed through the grove, a sound as haunting as the whispers of the trees. "Knowledge is not given freely, child. It must be earned." With a wave of her gnarled hand, the forest came to life. Trees groaned and twisted, forming barriers around Isabella. Shadows slithered and danced, taking sinister shapes. The very ground beneath her seemed to shift. But Isabella was no ordinary wanderer. She had a spirit as fierce as the wildest storm, and a mind as sharp as a blade. Drawing upon her inner strength, she met each challenge head-on, earning the respect of the forest itself. Impressed, Elara relented. She revealed secrets of forgotten incantations and ancient prophecies. She spoke of the delicate balance between light and darkness, life and death. As dawn broke, Elara offered Isabella a choice: to leave the hollow and return to her world, or to stay and inherit the mantle of the forest's guardian. It was a choice that would bind her to the woods, granting her power beyond mortal comprehension, but at a price. Isabella, understanding the weight of her decision, chose to return. With newfound wisdom, she emerged from the hollow, forever changed. From that day on, Isabella became a legend in her own right, a guardian of the forest and a keeper of ancient knowledge. But she never forgot the haunting allure of the Witch's Hollow, a place where the line between fear and fascination blurred, and where darkness and light danced their eternal twisted waltz. Whispers in the shadows. The wind howled outside, rattling the old windows of the secluded house. Emily sat alone in the dimly lit living room, the only source of light being the flickering flame of a single candle. Her parents had gone away for the weekend, leaving her with strict instructions to stay inside and lock all the doors and windows. As the clock struck midnight, a chill ran down Emily's spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She glanced around nervously, but the house seemed empty and still. Suddenly, a faint scratching sound echoed through the hallway. Emily's heart raced. She strained her ears, trying to discern if it was just the wind or something more sinister. There it was again, louder this time, unmistakably coming from the front door. Terror gripped her as she tiptoed towards the door, praying it was just her imagination playing tricks on her. She peered through the peephole, but all she saw were shadows dancing in the moonlight. Then, a voice, a low, guttural whisper, slithered through the cracks. "Emily!" it hissed, sending shivers down her spine. Her breath hitched, and she staggered back, knocking over the candle. Darkness enveloped the room, leaving Emily paralyzed with fear. She fumbled for her phone, fingers trembling as she dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? A voice crackled through the receiver. There's someone trying to break into my house, Emily stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Help is on the way. Stay on the line and remain as quiet as possible, the operator instructed. Emily clung to the phone, her heart pounding in her chest. The scratching at the door grew louder, accompanied by muffled footsteps. The intruder was persistent, relentless. As she waited for the police, Emily's mind raced. She knew she couldn't stay in the living room, vulnerable and trapped. Gathering her courage, she inched towards the back of the house, every creaking floorboard echoing in her ears. The back door felt miles away, but Emily pushed herself forward, driven by sheer terror and the desperate need to survive. Just as she reached the door, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness. Emily's breath caught in her throat. It was the intruder, their face hidden in the shadows. Time seemed to stand still as they locked eyes. The intruder's lips twisted into a sinister grin, and Emily's instincts kicked in. She slammed the door shut and bolted it with all her strength. She could hear the police sirens in the distance, growing closer. The intruder pounded on the door, their rage reverberating through the house. Emily huddled in the corner, praying for the nightmare to end. Finally, the sound of approaching footsteps filled the air. The police burst through the door, apprehending the intruder in a flurry of shouts and scuffling. As the adrenaline slowly ebbed away, Emily felt a flood of relief wash over her. She was safe. The nightmare was over. But the memory of that night would forever haunt her, a chilling reminder of the darkness that could lurk just beyond the safety of home. The Haunting Hour. The moon hung low in the ink-black sky, casting long, eerie shadows across the bedroom floor. Jennifer lay in her bed, eyes heavy with exhaustion, but sleep eluded her. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As the clock ticked on, an icy chill crept through the room. Jennifer's breath fogged the air, a visible reminder of the cold. She pulled the covers tighter around herself, but it offered little solace. Just as the last vestiges of wakefulness began to fade, Jennifer was jolted awake by a strange sensation. It was as if an invisible hand clamped down on her chest, squeezing the air from her lungs. Panic set in as she realized she couldn't move. She was trapped, a prisoner in her own body. The room seemed to grow darker, the shadows deepening and coalescing into grotesque forms. Whispers danced through the air, unintelligible but laden with malevolence. Jennifer's heart raced, pounding in her ears like a drumbeat of impending doom. Then from the corner of the room emerged a figure, tall and gaunt, draped in tattered rags, its face hidden in the folds of shadow. It moved with a deliberate, unearthly grace, gliding across the floor without a sound. Jennifer's eyes widened in terror. She could feel its gaze fixed upon her. The figure drew closer, its presence suffocating. Jennifer tried to scream, to break free from the grip of her paralysis, but her voice was lost in the suffocating silence. Her heart hammered in her chest, a wild animal desperate to escape its cage. As the figure loomed overhead, Jennifer could make out the glint of malevolent eyes, gleaming like shards of glass. They bore into her soul, stripping away her last vestiges of hope. She felt a cold, clammy hand caress her cheek, sending shivers down her spine. With a sudden surge of willpower, Jennifer fought against the invisible restraints. She willed her fingers to twitch, her toes to wiggle, anything to break free. Slowly, agonizingly, her body responded. A tingling warmth spread through her limbs, like blood returning to frozen veins. Just as she regained control, the figure let out a guttural, otherworldly howl. It recoiled, dissolving back into the darkness from whence it came. The room brightened, the shadows retreating like a defeated army. Gasping for breath, Jennifer sat up, drenched in sweat. The clock read 3:33 a.m., a mocking reminder of the haunting hour. She shivered, unable to shake of that icy touch, those piercing eyes. From that night on, Jennifer never looked at sleep the same way. The specter of sleep paralysis loomed over her, a malevolent presence waiting to pounce. Every creak, every whisper in the dark sent shivers down her spine. For Jennifer, the line between dreams and reality had blurred, leaving her forever haunted by that nightmarish encounter. She knew that the specter would return, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next chance to seize her in its icy grip.